And welcome to another exciting episode of the energy that surrounds us. I'm your host, Michael, joined tonight with co host Michelle Gray. And tonight we have a special guest on. His name is Kevin Jeffers. He has a really incredible background, so I will let him share that with you.
You want me to start now?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, the experiences that I've had started when I was about 5 years old. And I would see geometric shapes swirling about me. And I found out at that tender age that if I touched them, I could direct them.
Oh, wow.
I guess that was my early childhood version of having a computer, except it was happening right in front of me. And then as time went on, the experiences were interesting, but they weren't dominant. Until I was about 18 years old when I went to a hypnotist, past regression hypnotist, past life regression. And he discovered a few things about me, which I found rather intriguing. And then fast forward, I've been healing now for probably 6 years. And I was called to St. Louis by my mother to work on my brother who had just broken his back. And then some interesting things came out of that, which I can go into detail a little bit. And then fast forward, it was just a steady experiences and learning how to do things with energy.
Wow, so that's really cool. And so I'm kind of curious. You call it the pattern. Is that something that you just noticed and decided to call it pattern, or how did you come up with the phrase the pattern?
But before you answer
Well,
that,
it was really a word that I chose because of the experience, which was a very strong out-of-body experience that brought me into view of the universe with grid lines behind it. And grids were kind of like the background fabric of consciousness for everything. And the closer I got to the grid, the more emotional it became. But I began to see a pattern in my life where I experienced this energy, and that left a huge impact.
Okay, I think Michelle had a question for you.
he answered it, I was going to ask him to bring in the difference between the grid and the pattern. And he pretty much already did it. So perfect.
Well, the pattern was as best I could do at the moment.
So, one of the things we talked about backstage before we got started, I wanted to make sure got asked is why is it important to let go of beliefs?
Well, in my experience, the beliefs confine you as a personality, as a person striving to increase consciousness, because we get framed within this box of beliefs that have been created by us. It was created by our family, by school, by expectations of society. The broader picture was a certain kind of behavior was expected. These rules that we believed as we were young have now become the operating reality for us.
I think he froze up, Michael.
Yeah, I think we got a temporary freeze. There he is. You kind of froze for a second there. Okay, so when you talk about consciousness, how do you define consciousness? What is it to you?
having an issue again.
Oh. Okay.
Perfect.
There we go. I'm not sure if you heard the questions, but we actually got a question from the chat room. Katie Louise is asking, are the rings around the earth that you describe in your social media the same as the astral plane?
It's the same thing. And I call them rings because every ring, if you can imagine a ring wrapped around the earth, operates at its own frequency or vibration. The closer to the earth, the more dense that frequency becomes. And the farther away you go from the earth, the finer it is. So it's an astral plane until you get to a certain point where then it becomes pure energy. Not the shape of not a shape of something in energy, but just pure energy. But as it is, we're confined to viewing ourselves as energy, the astral energy, and rarely do we go beyond that.
Okay, and so I understand that. And when you're talking astral plane, do you include that in that the ethereal plane, or is that another one of those rings around the planet and another plane beyond that?
Well, the ethereal plane is when the frequency increases, you start to experience reality in a different manner.
Okay.
Okay, I'll ask.
Ethereal, as the name implies, is very fine energy. Very fine energy.
Can we
Okay.
touch a little bit on the data packets that you speak about in different things? I'm fascinated by that.
Well, data packets are simply a method or a form of communication between people that have passed into the higher planes. So as an example, you need to talk with your guardian angel. You don't talk. No words are spoken. It's all concentrations of questions and thoughts that are put into a container that is sent to you, and you are able to translate that into words. And it happens just simultaneously to the thought and the spoken word. So you can be heard, but it's not a voice. It's energy.
That's very curious. As a medium and all of these other names they like to throw at me, that's very interesting that you say that, because that's exactly how I get things. I get things in a certain way, and then it has to be almost broke down and translated from what it came to into what I can actually communicate to people. So
sometimes these data packages are so dense and so large that it might take us a lifetime to unpack it.
Okay, well, I'm just getting crumbs then.
You're getting crumbs.
Yeah, it doesn't take me that long. Not a whole lifetime that I know of. It might have taken me 30 lifetimes. I don't know. And I'm just on number 31.
Well, that's true. They could have been sent to you a long time ago, and now you're seeing it.
Just now figuring them out.
Hmm.
You said something that said I'd like for you to elaborate on, and it says that we came into a predator world, no clouds, no angels with harps. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, when we descend to the lower frequencies, we take on form, the physical body. And as you probably have learned from experience, that life here on Earth is predation upon other forms of life.
Right.
People do it, animals do it, insects do it. And it's all about dominance and position in the human reality or the physical plane reality.
Right.
So when we first come in, we take on a body. We don't particularly know who we are because we chose not to know who we are. The challenge to you is to understand and experience who you are. So as an example, when you first come in, probably a good starting point would be a caveman.
Okay.
And that's a basic life. That's where you need to go out and kill to eat, to survive. And as you go up through society into the more sophisticated societies, predation isn't necessarily killing someone and eating them. It could be taking their land away,
Right.
taking their money away. It all comes down to someone is doing something to deprive you of something.
Right. Interesting. Thank you for answering that.
So I'm kind of curious. There are times when like I'll be sitting in a room and all of a sudden like one ear will be like start buzzing. And I've always just referred to that as getting like a download because all my other sensors are fine and it's not like a ringing, it's just like everything else is muffled and then it just goes away. Could that be like what you're saying is the data packets coming in?
No, that's just someone making their presence known. If it's not tinnitus, it's definitely a presence. And the presence translates itself into that buzzing sound.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely not tinnitus. I know that.
Well, the only thing left is the buzzing is a function of what you think you're hearing. There is a high chance that the buzzing is a communication.
Oh, I believe that for sure.
I just haven't learned to translate buzz.
Yeah.
I don't speak B either.
Not fluidly for me.
And so
Michael,
earlier,
entering into a shift of consciousness to another level of consciousness. And the translation to that is an energetic impulse that you hear, but you don't understand because you don't have the language for it.
right, and I'm glad you bring that up because earlier on one of the glitches, I was asking you, you talk a lot about consciousness. And what is consciousness to you? Because everybody defines it differently.
Well, consciousness is just simply perception awareness. And it increases in sophistication as the form, the physical form, it increases its rate of vibration, and you start to know more, to listen more, to hear more than you did before. So the shifting in your life can go from when you were younger, everything was about food and mom and security. And as you get older, it's about your own personal survival and knowledge and manipulation and position in reality. So consciousness, and this is important to me, is that what I call uplift. We're being uplifted from one level of consciousness to another because the pattern is helping guide us to that point where we're questioning more than we're answering.
How does soul consciousness work into that?
Every animate and inanimate object expresses some degree of consciousness. And you can easily say soul consciousness because everything has a soul. The trees, the plants, the birds, the insects, right. The river, definitely. The rocks, they all talk. They all speak.
And you can hear them. If you pay attention and get all the nonsense out, you can hear the difference. You can feel the difference. I can feel the difference. I mean, I don't know if everybody else can, but I know I can. And I know you can too, and quite a few other
one
people.
Time when I was traveling, I heard two rocks telling jokes to each other.
Well, I didn't go that far. I haven't heard the comedy rock show yet, but I'm hoping to one day. That would be fun. Was it funny? Like, as a human, could you understand the gist of it? Did you hear my question, Kevin?
I lost you there for a little bit. Can you rephrase?
Yes. When you heard the rocks
No,
interacting.
I did not.
Okay. That's sad. I wonder what rocks joke about. That would be nice to know.
The sand.
Maybe.
So I'm kind of curious as a. Oh, hold on, we might be getting them back.
Yeah.
Bear with us, folks. We're doing the best we can. This is the joys of doing a live show.
It's very fascinating. I really enjoyed all of the research that I got to do.
So, Kevin, when you say soul traveler, are you referring to going out of out of body experiences, going into past lives?
Yes.
Well, okay.
We are more than who we think we are. That's become my mantra in life. We are capable of extending our consciousness into different areas and levels of reality. We're also capable of what people call an out-of-body experience, which is the separation of the astral body with the physical body. So there are many ways to experience reality, or just simply meditation is a good tool for that.
Do you
Was that
think
something you stumbled on, or is that something you learned to do?
I think I
We lost you for a second there. You were saying you think you, and then we lost it.
Okay, rephrase the question. I'll answer it again.
Do you feel like soul traveling, that when you're going out of body and into the past lives, so is that something you were able to just do, or is that something you learned to do?
I learned to do it. One of the
Okay.
things that's interesting, Michael, is that when you're in the ethereal body, there is no time. So the past, the present, the future, they all blend together into one experience. So you are able to look out to past lives fairly easily because you don't have obstruction of the body stopping you.
Right. I'm just curious, do you retain conscious memory when you wake up of everything, or do you just feel like...
Well, I'm a great journalist. I journal because I know there's an area when you've gone out and you come back and you fall asleep, or just if you're not focused on it, you can easily forget your experience. So I've learned over the years to write everything down that I thought was interesting, and that way I captured the moment through my written word.
It's a very good idea.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, did you run across any past lives you were like, I knew that I was there, or I knew I was a part of that?
What, run across what, Michael?
A past life, like if you were reviewing your past lives and going, now that makes sense why I was so focused on that when I was growing up. I knew I had to be a part of that, or that I was there.
Well, I think we need to pay attention to what we experience in our dreams. And if you go out in consciousness, pay attention to that, because your higher self, your higher soul is constantly prompting you to increase your experience, to maximize your experience while you're here. Because when you pass and you go into the higher planes, you know everything. You forgot when you decided to be born to your parents, you forgot by agreement what happened before. Because if you knew everything, coming into this life would be a fairly valueless life.
Yes.
And we're all encumbered with the bodies and circumstance and environment. And frankly, as nice it is and loving as it is, it's just, to me, it's not all that interesting.
So then
So-
I'm curious. Sorry, Michelle. I was,
Oh, it's okay.
yeah.
Go ahead.
If, because like you're saying, you know, if we don't pay attention, we forget, and we're not born, you know, with the prior memories. So is deja vu like the pattern saying to us, hey, here was something you really need to pay attention to from the past? Or how do you explain like the deja vu experience?
Well, deja vu is an interesting experience because it either could be a foretelling of yourself, but usually deja vu happens moments before something happens. So I think some part of your consciousness is alerting you to what is going to happen next, and you remember it because you're not limited. There are no limitations in memory, and you pretty much know what's coming up because you as a soul can see what's coming up. You as a soul know what you're going to experience. The mind translates that, gets jumbled up. We really believe that we cannot pre-experience an experience.
So, Michelle, did you want to?
Yes, I was actually, forgive me if I get it wrong, because I was trying to jot this stuff down and unpack at the same time and still listen to you. But do you think the imprinted pattern can follow us throughout other lifetimes? Like in our very first life, is the pattern built and then the pattern continues hidden within through lifetimes? Or do you think it evolves throughout different lives?
Well, the pattern, in my experience, was created by what I call the creators.
Okay.
And it's full of information about how to uplift our consciousness and to release. We reach the point where we just don't have to be here anymore because we learned what we can learn. Pattern is fluid, but constant. And it's what you see in the pattern is just simply your interpretation of what you're seeing. As your life goes on and your experience base increases, the pattern will look different and feel different and act different. And it's not because the pattern is changing, it's because you're changing.
Okay. So the pattern remains, it's just we're evolving. I'm sorry, we didn't.
The pattern was put into place to help all forms of consciousness uplift themselves to what I call spiritual freedom.
Okay. Thank you.
So,
Michael, question?
I was kind of curious because I, being with metaphysics, I get a lot of these principles, and I've just never really worded them the same way. But I'm curious with you and your life and your work, do you find that being able to see the patterns that you may avoid certain situations because you're like, hey, I no longer need to learn that pattern, so you veer away from somebody who may, or a situation that could develop into something else, and you're like, nope, I don't want to learn that one today, so change direction?
Well, the pattern is an excellent reference point for what doesn't work and what's not working in your life. So if you have that notion that you should stay away from someone, they're not going to benefit you, as an example, that's some part of your awareness explaining to you, hey, Michael, you need to pay attention here. This is not a good thing. And I'm sure you've had experiences in your life where you had that warning, you had that feeling, but you engaged anyhow, and possibly you regretted it.
True, I
I would
have.
prefer to get the heads up that something's not right than just.
So would you say that would be our gut instinct, is what people would call it? And some people's gut instinct is stronger than other people. Are
Well-
they a little bit more in touch, or is that different?
Well, the gut, interestingly, is the most aware organ in your body.
Huh.
The gut will always inevitably tell you if you're in danger, or you need to remove yourself from the situation, or you're going to be in trouble, or you're going to have trouble. The gut is terrific, is like first level radar. The gut says, well, Michelle, good things, not good things are about to happen. Pay attention.
Right.
So-
And then we travel up the energy field to our brain, and then we get our interpretation of what we just experienced in our gut.
Very interesting.
So, in metaphysics, I've learned like the ego is our earth guide only. It only benefits us, being here on the earth plane. Would that be kind of similar to what we're saying resides in the gut? Is that where the ego is getting its source information and energy from?
I would look at this more that the ego was built into us as human beings to protect us. If we're doing something that we shouldn't be doing, the ego is stopping that action or that conversation. But the ego is just simply a mechanism. But people that are run by their ego, you may have found in your own life experiences, do not have an encompassing view of who they are. Everything is about who they are at this moment, not who they are in the greater reality.
Right. I could agree with that.
Definitely.
And so, one thing we touched on earlier, I want to kind of flip the question about it. And that's going back to the importance of letting go of beliefs. Is on the flip side, is when people get stuck in their beliefs, what are some things that people can do to help release those beliefs and get free of the beliefs?
Well, in all probability, you don't even know that you're operating in a belief.
Can you elaborate more on that?
Because generally people don't know that they're operating from a belief. Yeah,
they
it's
live in
like
confusion.
the purpose of the belief is to contain your perception and awareness.
Okay.
So you don't really know your ego. You don't know, some people don't know they have an ego. Everything is the moment of now. The ego is just simply put in place to make sure that you survive. And when you start experiencing a greater reality, that the ego becomes threatened and it obstructs your way to a greater understanding, a greater perception of the universe. The ego doesn't want to let go, and it doesn't want you losing track of what you should be doing, which is taking care of it. So the ego is just simply something that came with you. It's a mechanism you can turn it to your benefit, but it's not related to the gut, which is just an energetic response to emotion and to danger and many other things. In your gut, you know you're love. It's a response to the energy of love.
Aw.
Right. Where I'm going with my question is like for people who are more aware, like I knew somebody who, well, I'll be totally transparent. So my dad, when he was alive, would struggle with letting go of beliefs about his past. And we'd always would talk to him, and he could see it, but he knew he was stuck. And we just couldn't help him break free of it. So that's where I'm asking you if you've come across that, what can be done to help people who are aware and see the pattern, but they just don't know how to break free.
Well, we're very much invested in our patterns, and breaking that investment, expanding who you are, is a very painful process. And as painful is on an emotional level, it can be traumatic. If you try to break someone's belief, the chances are there's going to be a fairly strong reaction. So my thought is, in that case, you wanted to build an understanding of the belief structure to allow that person to let it go.
Okay. So my dad recently passed away, and one of the things that he said he regretted was he now sees how he could have let it go, but living here, he couldn't figure that out.
Yeah, the environment will affect that. But the good thing is he began to understand what his beliefs are and how they impacted his life. If he continued his life, he would have learned from that experience.
All right, so Michelle, you got something?
No, I'm out. I'm out of spiral questions. Now I'm just listening and seeing. I'm out.
So, what prompted you to start this journey and find the pattern within and helping other people to see their patterns?
I think it really comes down, Michael, to when you're aware of the pattern, it's much easier to communicate to other people your experience. When I first experienced the pattern, I was in my meditation chair having a great meditation, and I was literally pulled out of my chest and directed to this bright light with squiggly lines in it, and then pushed closer and closer and closer, and it started to come into focus. It was a very emotional experience for me. I couldn't even talk about it for months because every time I remembered that experience, I became emotional. Now, eventually with time, I released that emotionality and started to be able to talk about the pattern. So experiencing and moving into the pattern is for me very difficult and very wrenching, because you see your reality was a construct of beliefs and other people's opinions. And finally, you start to see that you're free of those. And that transition, that freedom from beliefs is really a function of energy, the availability of energy. And it's also indicative of changes occurring inside of yourself. So someday I believe from my experience that people will see the pattern and learn from it, but that's a process of growth and
Having a little bit of a glitch.
Okay, and so I don't know how in tune you are with everything going on in the world, but like a lot of people are talking about the Schumann resonance and how it is the resonance of the planet and how it can affect our energy and everything. Is that something you're familiar with, or is it something you've never heard of?
Well, it's an interesting dichotomy because humans influence reality, but so do other forms of consciousness. the human experience, the human reality is not particularly agreed to by, as example, whales. My sense of it is in swimming with dolphins is that they think we're all nuts.
I've heard the dolphin thing before, and I absolutely love it. Like, I love the dolphin stories about when you saw them and they were just like these things, and they were looking back at us like, whatever.
Well, they operate completely different than we do. Their consciousness is different. They sing their questions. They're just different beings.
They're beautiful.
Right.
They're
I
just
love.
better.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar, Kevin, but when I was in Hawaii, they told us their story of where the dolphins came from, and I always thought that was the most beautiful story I've
Good.
ever heard handed down from tradition. Have you heard it?
Mm-mm.
Yes. When you look at their forward flippers, they decided to stay in the water and not go to the land.
Smart.
So they survival tools, but they had the
Yeah.
ability at one point to walk, to go to land, and they chose not to. They liked the freedom of the water.
Yeah, the story I was told was similar. Is there was like they were walking over the rainbows to from island to island, and the children wanted to go play and jumped in the water and decided we're having so much fun playing, we're just going to stay here in the water, and hence the dolphins were born.
Hmm.
So I like how both of them are.
I think the story is very much similar to that of the whales.
Right. And it is amazing that, like, when I went swimming with the dolphins, I haven't been able to swim with the whales yet. But there is, like, I can't explain it, but other than say there is a euphoria that falls over you of you forget all your worries, you forget all your cares, and they literally bring you into a moment and you're frozen in that moment because it's like nothing else is entering your mind except I'm here playing with the dolphins. And I think that's a gift I think everyone ought to experience at least once.
Be neat.
Doing
So-
it the right way. I'm not saying let's all go jump in the ocean and grab a dolphin in the wild and swim. Let's do it respectfully.
Yeah. I kind of want to bump back to the whole meditation thing when you came out of your body, because
Well,
you
I
missed
might not
one of the,
agree with you.
you missed
Right.
one of the best parts about Michael. Do you know where he meditates at? It's the best. It's the best. In a lazy boy,
Hey,
a lazy boy chair. Isn't that amazing? You get to be comfortable.
That was a little choppy. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
no, I think he was saying it was a little choppy, but
Oh.
yeah, I mean, I I tend to find sometimes it's hard to go into meditation because there's just so much. It's like I'll quiet one section down, and then it's like, oh Lord, now the other section is gone into super mode, and it's like, let me quiet that one down. And then I feel like by the time I finish quieting my mind down, the time I had allotted for the meditation is over. And I'm like, I really didn't get to meditate.
I just can't ever get comfy. Maybe I need to do the lazy boy too, but then I might take a nap. So I think that might be a different kind of meditation, to take a nap instead of actually meditate and concentrate into what you're trying to do. But I thought that was neat. I've never heard anybody meditate in a lazy boy.
Use what you got.
I love it. I think it's great.
Oh,
Yep.
Evan's.
Gonna try again.
He'll be back here in just a couple of seconds.
I've always
Yeah.
found it hard to meditate. Are you able to actually do it? Like, how do you do it? How do you get everything out of your head to meditate?
To
Practice.
get everything.
It's just all practice, Michelle.
Well,
Yep.
I need to practice a lot of things.
Yeah, if you meditate once in a while, the efficiency or the effectiveness is greatly diminished. But if this is something that you really want, then you need to do it again and again and again. And then the practice of meditation allows you to clear your thoughts away.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Your thoughts are really not that important. Your thoughts are just your thoughts. They are not who you are.
Right. I think as close as I've ever gotten when I hear everyone talk about meditation is just when I've gone down to some kind of water and I've got my feet in the water and my hands in the dirt. And at that point, it's kind of like nothing else matters. It's like I'm just grounded and I don't have to think about not thinking. Not thinking just happens. And that's as close. I've never been able to just sit. Of course, I'm not really good at just sitting.
But when you meditate, remember that experience.
Yes. I saw a shrink for years when I was back thinking I was crazy instead of acknowledging the fact that I was. And he always had this round rock thing where he said, what is your favorite thing? If you could just pick up your favorite thing on earth, and I'd say river rocks. I love river rocks. Always love river rocks. Each one is so different and they all have a different vibration and a different smell. And so I love river rocks. And he's like, well, just imagine the river rock. You take your gray river rock and then you just add a word to it. It's a cold gray river rock. And then you just go on. And that's how you delete everything, was just to focus on this one wonderful thing. So that's all.
The Japanese call that Zen.
Oh, well, that's good because I never thought I'd achieve that. So,
win Japanese love stones for meditative purposes because they're all different.
Love rocks. Yeah, they all have different voices. And
yeah. My favorite technique in high school for meditating would be I'm going to age myself, putting a CD on, and just put it on a loop to where it would repeat the whole CD and just listen. And I've gotten to the point to where I could be so deep in meditation that I could hear the breath of the earth, like the hum and the vibration, and just I could feel the wind even though I was indoors. It was like the walls just disappeared, everything just vanished, and I was just somewhere.
I don't think I've had that in that situation.
It's a great place to be, Michael. Great place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So when you meditate, is there like something like a favorite meadow or a favorite place that you like to focus on to help guide yourself into the state?
For years, I've been working on no mind. And no mind to me means you're not thinking, you're not cogitating, you are just simply there. And gently push away the distractions that occur around you, and then you have nothing. And in that space of nothing,
Oh man, it always seems to like glitch at the good.
No, right in the good stuff.
So you were talking about being in the nothing, and then it kind of glitched, and we lost connection with you, Kevin. So would you mind repeating what you were talking about with experiencing in the nothing?
Well, when you're no problem. My goal in meditation is to
See, these are the moments that I feel like spirit and the universe just doesn't want us to share this information.
Why? I need to know these things.
But there's
Oh, it's-
always a way around the universe.
I was so pumped. You know, I was so excited about this one.
Okay. I just feel like the universe just doesn't want us to share what's inside the nothingness.
You know too much. They're trying to silence you.
Well, the nothingness of meditation, in my mind, is the place that I want to go. Because when I accomplish the experience of nothingness, then everything is possible.
That sounds so frightening to me. Like the thought of nothingness is, for some reason, it's just frightening to me. Maybe that's why I can't meditate, because it's the thought of nothing is so. It's almost like if I go into nothing, I'm scared of what I'm going to see in the nothing, which seems odd when I say it that way, but that's kind of like the fear. When I just go with it, it's kind of like the fear of nothing, of what's in the nothing that I don't want to see. It's kind of.
Well, you can look to your ego on that one.
Well, I have been told I have one of those for sure.
I was to say, it also sounds like that's a belief that she has that may need to address.
Well, the beliefs definitely affect the effectiveness of your meditation. When you go into nothing, you've set aside all of your beliefs. You've told your ego to be quiet for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, because of who you are, a soul, an energy body, then you start to experience things greater than your beliefs, greater than your ego.
I'm gonna have to try that.
And it could be anything. Many inventions have been made by people going into a meditative state of nothing.
Right.
Suddenly the idea or the drawing or some form of creativity pops in their mind. And where did it come from? Well, it came into the space of nothing because there was nothing there to obstruct it.
Well, what do you do for people who are in like a transitional phase where I am, where, like I was explaining before the show, that all of these things that have happened throughout my life and in lives before that are just now resurfacing? Like, how do you work through this transition of putting the pieces together and then realizing things? Like, I'm coming to the part where things that I just knew were fact from birth, that now I'm having to think and go, that makes no sense. Why would I live 46 years of my conscious life believing this nonsense, and then trying to push that out and not bring bits of it into the new reality? Like, what would you suggest for that, or for people in that transition? Was that all over the place? I can try to tame it down a little bit. No, that was everywhere. What do you think, Michael?
More thoughtful,
I can't hear him.
you gain more knowledge. So what I was saying is that when you're in the meditative state experiencing nothing, you are available for everything.
Okay.
Except you're not having it pointed out to you or directed to. You set your ego aside, you set your imagination aside, you set your fears aside, and what comes in is something that you should pay attention to, because it's coming into your space.
Okay. Well, I hope I can master that, and the listeners can figure out a way to do it too. It'd be better for all of us if we don't figure out.
Practice and more practice. Just keep practicing, Michelle.
Will do.
One day a week doesn't get you where you say you want to.
Maybe if I can't get it all in this life, I'll I'll figure it out in the next one.
That's why we're here.
Right?
Figure it out.
Just figure it all out.
So I actually have an interesting question that I've been kind of thinking about lately is our past lives. I know memories come in from our past lives that, affect us in today's world. What about beliefs? How do we determine a belief that's a past life belief versus our current life beliefs?
Well, you're going to have conflict because the past life belief is striving to gain control and dominance in the current life belief. So if you were an ardent Buddhist and then suddenly you became an ardent Catholic, there's a good possibility there's going to be conflict. Or you
Right.
used to be a soldier and now you're a peaceful person. Those two images, those two thought structures are going to have struggle and tussle with each other. And in due course, you figure out who it is you want to be. Do you want to be the peaceful man? Do you want to be the warrior? Do you want to be a blend? But that takes time and consideration and self-reflection.
Do you
Right.
think a lot of the mental health issues are people struggling with that without knowing it?
Could
like a
be.
lot of depressions and a lot of things like that. It's like
I think a lot of
interpersonal-
mental health issues are related to body chemistry.
I can see that too.
Not everything is related to something psychic or spiritual or this or that. Sometimes you need to take drugs to manage your chemistry.
Right.
I can see that, and I like how you mentioned a blend because I've always been told you're either this or you're that. Nobody has ever said you can blend the two. And so I love that notion that, yeah, we can blend our past lives with our current lives.
Well, eventually you're going to blend them all, Michael. You probably had dozens of lives. I can easily see you having more than 80 to 100 lives.
Oh my Lord.
Oh, yeah. And you got more to go. So
Oh,
you,
Man,
tired all the time.
yes. So you have to reconcile all of your past experiences to achieve a level of self-knowledge that allows you to release yourself from this world.
Good Lord. Michael,
Man.
what if I'm a hot mess in all my lives? I could be doing this forever.
No, not forever, almost, but not forever.
you just crushed a hope of mine. I was like, I always would tell myself when I was growing up, going, "This is my last life. This is
I've
it.
always
I'm learning everything I need to learn now." And when you say I got many more, I'm like, "No."
Oh, yeah. Well, you'll have it all figured out when you pass. You go into spirit, and then they're going to present your next opportunity.
Hopefully, it'll
And
be at a
because
much
you know
better
everything
climate.
and you are everything, you're just going to nod your head and say, "Yeah, I want to do that," because you just forget all the misery you went through.
Right.
So that makes me curious as a person who speaks to spirits and hears spirit chatter that actually never says words, just sounds like someone in an apartment above me laughing and talking and doing all of these things. Does that, that kind of like art, in your opinion, do you think those are spirits or those other us's? I mean, what are these spirits that like can talk to me and
Could be many things.
Yeah. Because I believe that the spirit chatter is so very different from the spirits that talk to me. I mean, it's just very, there's so many different realms. It's hard to wrap your head around it. Once you start opening up, it's so much. It's like overload. Mom, you had some experiences like that too, Michael, didn't you? It's just
Yes.
overload.
Oh yes. And so I know we're approaching the end of the hour pretty here in a
All right.
few minutes. So I was just curious, Kevin, if you wanted to share where people can find you and if there's anywhere that you've like wanted to go to because the energy there you feel like would be like, oh, I could do so much in this energy.
Well, my favorite thing to point to is the Facebook page for the pattern. We spend a lot of time creating posts, matching them with interesting imagery. And the posts are taken from my book called The Pattern: An Exploration of Consciousness. But they're excerpts.
Well, thank you so much. That was really interesting. I see that we have the pattern down here with all of your information on the comments. It has the pattern.pub, facebook.com, Twitter. That's great. So,
Right.
Now we have a web page. It's www.thepattern.pub. And if someone wanted to pop an email over to me, it would be info@thepattern.pub. But the
Very
most
cool.
active representation work is through the Facebook page.
And interestingly, you mentioned your book, which I'm looking forward to reading and getting at Amazon. Are these stories that you of your experiences, or did you compile with other people's experiences?
They're my experiences. I don't talk about other people's experiences, other people's lives. I thought that what I was presenting in the pattern would be interesting as my experience.
Okay, which I respect that, and I think that's really cool of. And so this would definitely be a book to recommend for people to get to knowing you and your stuff as well, correct? I'm not sure if you heard that.
I don't think so.
No.
No.
I was saying, so if somebody was to come up to you and before emailing you, it might be a good idea to read the book because they'll get a good idea of who you are and where you come from, and that might help a lot of people with stuff they're going through.
Well, there's a lot of detail in the book, a lot of practical experiences or real experiences that I've had that are easily missed when you're just skimming. A lot of people don't like to read books, but if you do like to read books, then the book that's on Amazon now is finally edited to be very readable. It won't be a slogger. I don't think it'll put you to sleep. The original manuscript that I had would put me to sleep.
Oh.
So we perked it up a little bit. We simplified it, did a lot of editing, and it reads very smoothly. So I don't think it would be a chore to read it if you like to read.
Sounds good. Everybody go get a copy.
Yeah, Amazon.com, Pattern Exploration Consciousness, Kevin Jeffers. I'm not even going to attempt to read the rest of that. But so if you have a quick moment, because I know you probably got things to do, I was just curious real quick with you talking about patterns and beliefs and stuff. What is your take on places where people are talking like Sedona, where they're like the Earth's energy there is so this or that? Do you buy into that, or do you feel like that's just hype and the energy is the same everywhere?
Energy is never the same everywhere. There are places like Sedona that operate at a high frequency. And people that have moved there or visited. They're just simply observing and feeling what's there. There are holy spots on the earth, and there's a lot of hellish spots on the earth. And it's all energy related, probably from past cycles of consciousness.
Okay. And
everything we do on earth is imprinted into the earth.
Right. And to follow up with that, like Sedona, there was like several articles, I think, around COVID time when people are like, we need to stop going to Sedona because we're draining the energy there. It's not feeling the same. What is your opinion? What would you say if somebody said, yeah, we're draining the energy of Sedona? We need to let it replenish.
Wow.
I have no idea what that means.
How could that even happen? Like,
how can the earth stop what it's doing? And how can you stop experiencing what you're experiencing?
Yeah, I don't get it.
So there's nothing you can do to influence the energy for. But no, draining out of energy is, to me, just kind of a humorous kid story.
Yeah, I think it's just, I thought it was just a method of hyping to get people to pay attention to the area, because I think people are like, oh, Sedona, everyone's heard about that. Let's move on to a different topic. And they're like, no, we still need you to come.
Well, if you miss the experience, you're missing an experience.
I have yet to go.
Yeah, so I haven't been there yet myself.
Take time and go. Experience it for yourself.
Definitely.
I've been to many religious sites, temples, churches, monasteries, and they do resonate. And if you're sensitive, you can pick that up and you can start to piece together the experience in a way that it enlightens you.
That's good to know. I need to do that.
So do you feel like that's the enlightenment that we're all like looking for when everyone tells us, we need to go enter into the age of enlightenment? It's not going into studies, it's going and experiencing instead?
Well, the shift in consciousness will occur with the next generation, the generation after that. We have done what we can do. We've done whatever we have done. And it's shifting consciousness in a positive way, believe it or not. But it's up to the next generations to put that in place.
That makes me sad.
No, actually, I find some comfort in that because it's knowing I did my part to help lead it to the positive. But then at the same time, I look at like what's going on in the world with some of the new next generation and thinking, oh boy, we're in trouble.
Will they even notice? Will anyone ever look up long enough to notice? Or just wait to
Well, in all probability, you're going to come back and do it again. But I would have a talk with my guardian angels about being a little more aware, a little more energy focused. You can put instructions into yourself when you're born.
Oh, good.
Capabilities, experiences built into you before you're born, because it's embedded in your energy body.
Make a note to myself: don't marry narcissists this time.
Kevin, if I was to
probably
become
generally good advice.
If I was coming back to have to do this all again, I'd be like, okay, note to self, when born, have complete memory of everything for the past when we did this to start with, so I could build upon.
I wouldn't want to do that.
Michael, you'd be bored out of your skull.
Yeah, there'd be nothing new or exciting.
Knowing everything in this moment gives you no room for creativity and expansion.
Oh,
So be happy that you come in with what you come in and you are able to learn more.
right. No, I get that. I'm just meaning if I was to die in this generation and have to come back in another generation, I'm like, I really don't want to start from this life's point zero and move to, I'd be like, okay, and then move on and going, oh, now I can add this to, it's like, no, I'd like to have a better starting point.
I don't know. I think I'd rather just have all my hiccups.
For each person, there's no continuation now that they're experiencing. There's no continuation of the now. When you come back, you're going to be a different package.
Ooh,
And
there's
you
some
do that
comfort in
for
you.
the experience. You don't want to repeat what you've done.
No.
You want to learn new things. So the package will be different.
Yeah.
My suggestion is when it comes time to design the package you're going to come in next, that you take a very active hand in working with your guides to make that happen.
And be like, let's grow up in Ireland or better climate
Oh,
than the
Jenny's
heat
gonna
of
love that.
Texas.
Yeah, we can't all be that lucky.
Well, if you can find willing parents, I say go for it.
Mm,
Oh,
wow.
yeah. Well, Kevin, it's been great talking with you. I'm sure you have things to do, and we appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you, Kevin. I had fun. I always have fun, but I had a lot of fun this time. Well, Mike, it was fun.
I was afraid that was going to happen, that he'd be
Bros.
froze on the out.
Michael, I was just speechless. Nothing more.
Oh, that's great.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and taking the time to share with us everything, and I've learned a lot, and I'm sure the viewers, when they watch this, are gonna be like, man, that makes more sense, and now I get what I need to be focusing on and help
Definitely.
them.
It's all very
I know.
real and all very practical.
Good stuff.
Oh, you woke her up, Michelle.
No, she was staring at me with evilness. Now she's just looking like that, all jelly-like over here. But we know the truth, and we're all going to bed. Thank you so much for being on here,
Yes,
Kevin.
thank
This was
you.
fun.
And
Even with
Well, you're
all the
welcome.
glitches, it just made it interesting.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to chat a little more.
Definitely.
yes, and in the future, if you want to come back on, we'd be happy to have you back on.
All right. My quiet request is fix the internet.
God.
Well, I have a feeling, as you point out, we're shifting into a new paradigm. I have a feeling we'll be getting a new internet that'll be solid as ever.
Good.
Where is that? Right there, Michael.
Right there. Good. If you ever want to come to Texas, you come to DFW.
Well, I'm going to have to buy myself a pair of boots.
Nah, you're all right. You can wear Vans or whatever.
I'd recommend a hat, though.
What?
Yeah.
We
I see you
do
Wear
have a
Vans.
sun.
dressed
can't
up
wear
a little bit
cowboy
for
hat.
you Texas folks.
I didn't say a cowboy hat. I said bring a hat.
Well, he's
'Cause
got great hair. He's fine. He ain't gonna get a head burn. He'll be all right.
I got my baseball cap. I'll bring that.
Well, all right.
just be careful if it's a sports team, which one you bring.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I wasn't gonna say it, but I was gonna be like, "Don't bring the Oakland Hayes." But
Yeah,
you know,
my cap is non-denominational.
we got lots of your people here now, so you'll blend in. It'll be all right.
Okay. I don't own up to them, but you can have them.
No, thank you. We'd like to send them to Oklahoma. Thank you. We're full.
I'm a little curious when you say your people. What people are we talking about?
Californians.
Oh, I'm like, Wait a minute. What did we just say?
I grew up in Chicago, and Chicago is not
Oh.
California.
No, it's not.
I grew up
I
in
like
Chicago.
I love
Really?
Chicago.
Yes. Lansing
I
on the
lived in Oak
south side.
Park, went to school there, went to the Art Institute of Chicago downtown.
Well, that's such a good one. I daydreamed about going to that school when I was a kid. That in the art school outside of Branson, you could sell your art there. My mom used to say, I'm going to send you there, and it just never happened. I married a Marine and went to California, and here we
I
are.
was raised for 6 years in Lansing on the south side of Chicago.
Well, that's an interesting neighborhood.
Yeah, I know.
It gets more interesting every year.
And
Yeah.
I love when I tell people, I grew up in Lansing. They're like, Michigan? I'm like, no, Illinois. There's a Lansing, Illinois. I'm like, yeah.
One time I brought in some suppliers, and I said, I'm in Chicago, Illinois. And well, they said, we're going to Lansing. I didn't even think about it. They went to Lansing, Michigan, and not Lansing, Chicago, where they belonged.
Oh, no.
I never did get to see them.
A couple miles between those two. Just
Yeah.
a few. Just a few. All right, well, I got to go to bed. So it's
All right.
dark o'clock.
All right. Well, you take care. Good night.
Yep.
Thank you so
Good
much.
night.
It
Thank
was
you
a good
again.
week.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
What a sweet man.
Yep, he is. And let's see. Let's see if you read what I sent you, because I sent you the guest list.
I
So
have
who's
not
on
read-
next week?
I haven't read it.
It's
But I
on your
will.
phone.
Well, I'm on my phone.
Oh.
Remember, I'm
So
not in the office yet.
next week we have the Curious Twins Paranormal team
I don't-
from San Antonio.
Curious twins. Well, I'm a curious only child.
So
Are these
From all
male
of
twins or female twins?
I think it's 2 males. Sorry.
Did you do that for me? You're so sweet. Always thinking about me.
I do what I can.
Thank you. I don't know if I can get, I might find the double mint twins for you somewhere. I don't know where they are, but they actually have a famous sister.
Yeah.
But I can't remember who she is. But I read about it. But I'm sure I Pinterest a lot between then and now. So
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
All right, so come and join us next week, Tuesday, for that. Other things going on real quick for the show. For me personally, tomorrow I will be doing Para Chit Chat with Jenny Sullivan Sanyasi.
Love Jenny.
That's a 2-hour show, so I'll be doing that in the afternoon because she's all the way in Ireland. So it'll be night for her, afternoon for me. The links for that are on my Facebook page. And then Thursday, I have Paranormal Versus with Daryl Evans. And episode 2 of Riding Through the Unknown with Arkham Rob Wood in the evening. So you definitely don't want to miss out on those shows. Michelle, do you have anything going on this week?
No, I think I'm gonna get pizza at some point, but other than
Pizza's
that,
good.
yeah.
As long as it's not that New York pizza.
No, it's not. I have a horrible addiction to Hunt's Pizza, like from the gas station. I love it.
Yeah.
It's like Hunt Brothers or something. I don't even know.
Yeah, it's Hunt Brothers. I've never had pizza from a gas station.
I get very excited. Don't do that. Don't say I never got it from a gas station. There's nothing wrong getting pizza from a gas station. Sushi, dangerous. Pizza, you're safe.
I'm not saying anything about it. I've never done it.
It's so good. It's so good. Their cheese pizza is so good. And I can't eat meat, remember, anymore. So wings, shells, and feathers. That's it.
Feathers?
Yeah, like birds, like ducks and stuff.
Oh, I was like, if you're getting feathers on your pizzas, I would definitely be
No,
shopping somewhere else.
That's the kind of protein meat I can eat, like that kind of stuff.
Oh.
Yeah. It's a whole nother show. My food allergies is a whole nother show. We don't have time on this show. Yeah.
And with that, we're going to call it a night, folks. So thank you for tuning in.
Thanks for watching.
We will be back
next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. See you then.
With the curious.
You have just listened to the energy that surrounds us with your host, Michael Koff. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode.